right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to show you how to bring in a separate object from ZBrush once you already have your initial object in. So if you guys remember, initially you guys went import and you brought an object in, right? And then you had your object and then you drew it onto the screen. Actually, watch this. I'm going to turn this off, hit Control-N. I'm going to draw it onto the screen. So this is where you start off with. You hit Edit, and then you can rotate it. I have my floor on. I can turn that off. So this is where we're starting. Typically, your perspective is off too. It's in orthographic mode. And this is where everybody's starting when they bring their object in. Okay, but you have this thing called Subtools, and you could bring in other objects. And this becomes really important, especially a lot of people were asking about eyeballs. They're like, how do I do the eyes? Okay, how do you do the eyes? That's a really good question. Go back to Maya. Let's open up. Let's save that, continue. Okay, here's my Duncan in Maya. There's the eyeball. So all I did is I made a quad sphere. It doesn't have to be a quad sphere for an eyeball, technically. You can just use any sphere. But you want to get a sphere the size of the eyeball and the size that you think that the eyelids are going, how big you want the eyelid protrusion to be. Yes, Ian?
Do our models have to have eyes closed?
Well, here's the reason why you close the eyes, okay? The reason why you close the eyes is because when you're rigging it, you're going to, or I should say when you're skinning it, you're going to have bones that control the opening and closing of the eyes, all right? That the skin that you have on there, if you have it open and then you pull it closed, what happens is that the textures will stretch. But if you have it closed already, then you're giving the right amount of texture resolution to your model, and then when it opens, nobody notices the compression because the eyelids are open, and these edges that are up above your eyes are compressed together, and so nobody sees it. That's the reason why you keep the eyes or closed.
But do we have to for our model?
I'm teaching you production practices. Do you technically have to for your model? No. I'm not going to tell you that you have to for your model, but I'm teaching you good production practices so that you guys could go and do this in a real world situation. Yes? What I do with the mouth is sculpt it in a relaxed position. Now, there are people, if they know it's going to be like a creature that opens its mouth super wide, I have seen them actually model it with the mouth open wide because they know that it's eventually going to go there. One of the other things that they may do nowadays is actually paint multiple texture maps so that as the mouth opens, the UVs and the textures could change too. So it gets different resolution and it can morph between those. Now that's really high-end stuff. That's like movie level stuff. That would be happening because if it's going to be on 8K on this huge screen and everyone's going to be able to see if textures stretch, then they're going to go ahead and make compensation for that. So they can morph into a different UV set and morph into a different texture. So then that way the texture is made based on the shape of the mouth. If you ever heard of Mari? Anybody? It's a painting program. It's like a 3D painting program. With Mari, you can actually bring in the mesh at like different animated stages and like paint a map just for that, where you fix an area because the textures are stretching. But then you can have that as like a separate map that morphs into your actual main model. How you set the morphing it up is probably has to do with like some kind of set-driven key and multiple like map inputs that morph between the two. I've never done it, but I'm assuming that's how they're doing it. Like when the model goes to this stage of stretching its mouth, blend in this texture instead of using the original texture type of thing. I'm assuming that's how it works. Anybody know how that works? No, me neither. That's an assumption. Well, actually, when I worked at Midway Games, we did that. We actually did do for Stranglehold. They were actually morphing normal maps together to try to get better facial animation. So, like when somebody crunched their head, they would have like a normal map where the wrinkles in the head would come out, and they would blend between them. Ultimately, like that's a lot of work for a little bit of payoff. But if it is like a big film production and it's gonna be right in front of your face, they're going to want to fix it up so it looks right. Okay? All right, so let's go back to where we were. So where we were was, I've got this eyeball. You want to place it in the right spot. Select just the eyeball. Make sure you delete the history. Center pivot it. So if I look at my pivot, it's right in the middle. Okay, then I'm going to take that object, export selection. All right, so let's go here. I think we're in week 13. Oh, what's that? An eye sphere. Let's export it over that. How did that get there? All right. Oops. Cute kid. All right, so you come into your subtools. Now this is where it gets weird. Now, pretend you don't. In fact, let's just delete all of these. Let's just go. I'm going to delete that. You cannot undo a delete, by the way. So if you delete something, make sure you know what you're doing. All right, here's the original eye sphere that I brought in. I'm going to delete that too. Okay, this is what, let's say this is the way you started, right? You got nothing. All right, what you first have to do is do an append. This is where ZBrush gets weird, okay? You're like, why do I have to do this? Why can't I just click on a layer and import? I would say that that's the normal way to do it, but that's just not how ZBrush works. So you have to do an append. You can use any of these things to append. It doesn't matter, any of these different tools in here that are default tools. I usually use this one, and that's just because I know for sure if I see one of those in there, that means that I meant to append something over that. Because I can't imagine myself modeling with that, although who knows. All right, so I click on this, and you can tell that the color of the object changes. This is darker when I'm off of it, and then when I click on it, it's lighter. Okay, so I click on this. When this is activated, and you can see here I can hide Duncan if I want, but when this one's activated, all I do is go back into import, and now when I grab that eye, it will be importing that eye over the top. It basically just overwrites this model here. I know it's weird, but again, that's why I said ZBrush is a little strange. It just has some weird funkiness to it. So now I'm going to say open, and then boom. Now, why don't you see the eye? Because I already sculpted the head around the eye, but let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and put solo on, and now you can see that's where the eye came in. And then if I turn solo off, I can go like that, and I can hit, this is my transparency, so you can see where the eye is sitting. It's right there. Okay, so I went ahead and I shaped the eyelid around that eye. Now you can see this eye is actually in a little bit more. Well, what I did is when I got this into ZBrush, I felt like the eyes were too close together. So I went ahead and used my move tool, which is down here. I wish it wasn't there. But I moved it over a little bit like so with my move tool. And then I sculpted around it like that. So so when you want to actually start sculpting again, you have to go back to your draw tool. One other thing you can do to move, if you don't want to mess around with that move tool, is you actually have a offset here in your deformation rollout. So deformation rollout, offset, and you can set the direction you want the offset. So this is on the X. I can move back and forth. I can set it to X and Y. It'll go on a diagonal. I can set it to just Z or something like that. It'll go forward, backwards, whatever. But I typically would just use the widget. I'm just showing different tools. Yes, Ian, go ahead.
So does that mean we have to export our full model and the eyes separately?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Okay. That's a good question. Let me show you how you would do the other. So let's say I have the two of these. Let me export these together. Let me just do this. Delete history, your transformations. All right. Export, selection, head. If you do it together like this, you can come into ZBrush, follow the same steps that I just followed with the subtool, which is you have to append a new tool. It's just basic. The append is basically making a new layer. That's really all it's doing. It's making a new layer here. Click on that. Make sure you select it so you don't overwrite your old stuff. Hit import, and then I can import that head. Both of them will come together. So let me hide these so we can just see the head. You can see they're together. But what ZBrush knows is that anytime there's a unified mesh, okay, like the head is one unified mesh, and the eye is a unified mesh. They're their own islands. ZBrush knows that those two things are separate pieces. Okay, so like if I put on my polyframe, we'll get into that in a minute. Let me not show you that right now. Anyway, it knows it's separate meshes. It knows that they're not connected. So then what you can do here is you can go to, where is it? Split, and it would be, I think it's group split. Yeah, group split should be, or split to parts. Let's see if that one works. Okay. All right, yeah, that did work. So what it did is that ZBrush understood that those were two different parts. And now inside here, you can see it's got head 1 and head 2. Okay? That's all taken care of now. All right? Yes, another question.
So does that mean we have to group the things we want as a single object in one thing group, and the other things we want grouped as one object in another when we export it? Like, say you want the torso, head, and arms, and legs all in as one object, but you want the eyes separate. So would you have to?
Well, the torso, head, and legs and everything should be connected already, unless you want to Dynamesh those together.
Yeah, Dynamesh, that's right.
Yeah, keep those as one piece, and then keep the other ones another piece.
Okay, so you group them all together.
Well, no, not group. You combine them.
Okay, fine.
Not group. Group is different than combine. Combine means they're basically considered like one mesh, even though they're not all connected. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. All right, yeah. Group and combine are a little bit different. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to delete this head because I don't want that anymore. So, okay. This eyeball, actually, I'm going to keep the new eyeball and delete the other one because I know it's moved exactly where I want it. And let's go ahead and look at this. All right, so some other stuff that you guys should know how to deal with in ZBrush. All right, we already talked about. Let me talk about the principle of sculpting first of all. Okay, is anybody here taking a drawing class? Okay, a lot of people have. All right, good. Do you guys know what gesture drawing is? Okay, you know what gestural drawing is. All right, good. So in gestural drawing, are you trying to get your exact line, or you're loosely drawing, right? Okay, you're getting your big shapes, your major shapes. You're getting your action lines down, right? Almost everything you work in 3D, 2D, 3D, it all has kind of the same sort of process. So basically in ZBrush, you don't want to up-res your model until you have the resolution you're at shaped as close as you can to your end product. Does that make sense? So even like think about blocking out your model. You want to take those spheres or those cylinders that you're using to block out your model and get those close to the shape that you want before you send it over to ZBrush to unify the mesh. Okay? You're trying to get everything close to your reference, like whatever your reference is, whether you drew it or whether you're modeling something else. Okay, so ZBrush works the same way, but a lot of people make a mistake where they start up-resing, like they need more geometry before they've actually gotten their base layer the right shape. Get your base layer the right shape, and I am very stickler about this to myself. I'll be like, oh, time to up-res, and I'll go, wait a second, nope, I'm going to check this again and see if I need to reshape this even, like closer to my reference before I move up. Okay, so realize that what happens is if you move up too fast, you will get these mushy-looking models that are hard to deal with. So in other words, you want to stay as low as you can, as long as you can, until you need to put on the next layer of detail. Okay? Don't go up until you need that next layer of detail. There are few instances where, let's say you're modeling like a vase, and you model it with a revolve in Maya, and you say, I just need to put a design on my vase that's going to be like a little relief design. Now that's something you could bring into ZBrush, and you could just up-res it right away and sculpt in your little relief, and then get the texture maps off of it, and then export those texture maps out. That's a different story. There are cases where you do up-res it right away, but in most cases, when you're doing like a sculpt of an actual character or something that's, has a very specific shape, you're typically getting your shape as close as you can before you up-res. I'm stressing this a lot because this is a mistake that a lot of noobs do. A lot of newbie people do this mistake. All right, and I don't want you guys to make that mistake. So in other words, like Duncan, where he's at right now, I mean, technically, he's okay, but if I was going to start this over, I would actually want him even lower poly to begin with, and start sculpting on something lower poly, and then I would up-res it, and then I would refine it a little bit, and then I would up-res it, and then I would refine it a little bit more, and then I'm not going to up-res it more than I need. There's no reason to put that stress on my computer. Okay. So up-res it just to the point where you need and then stop. All right, so how do I get those eyes shaped right? Well, let's just talk about that for a second here. So, oops, just like that. Make sure you can see both of them. This looks like it's looks like the eyes could even be moved a little bit more out. But basically, I use the move tool a ton. All right. Remember how I showed you the move tool? If you hold Alt, it'll go off of the surface normal. So if I had like an eyeball up here, I can basically go like this and start pulling that out just by holding Alt. Okay, and that's what I did right here in the face. I went ahead and here, actually, you know what I'll do? Let's smooth this. Let's just smooth this down. Okay. So now he's back to where he was. He didn't really have much of the eyes going on. All right. So let's say you've got this eye sitting here. I want to move it a little bit because, oh, by the way, how you can switch subtools without actually having to go into the subtool menu. So let's say you just want to keep that closed. Maybe this is open. Hold Alt, tap on your mesh. Okay, and it'll switch subtools. Now we got a problem here. Whoa. What just, oh, I see. It's right there. My problem was I didn't have Duncan's eyeball on, if you will, or visibility on. So let me turn off transparency here so we can see both of them fine. Okay, so now I want to work on Duncan. Hold Alt, tap on him. You can see he changes. All right. Now I've got my move brush out. Actually, I want that move brush. And I'm just going to get over him, like right in the middle of the eyeball, and hold Alt, and I'm going to start pulling that eye out. And I might change the size of this, the draw size. Okay. And I might come out here and pull it out a little bit that way too. And now I'm starting to get that shape. Now, me personally, I do think the eye needs to go out a little bit wider. So let's do that before I get any further here. All right, let's move this out like that. Okay, make sure you got your stuff in the right spot. Let's see here, about right there. I'm looking at it from like straight on. I look at a perspective, that'll help too. I usually sculpt in perspective, so it's kind of important because you don't want things will look different in orthographic. All right, I'm hitting the wrong item here. There we go. Oh, there we go. All right, so you're just getting it so it's shaped just around there. All right, maybe smooth it a little bit if you need to. And then there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of like, okay, I got it close. I'm going to smooth it a little bit and get it again, do it again because it's not perfect. You know, like that happens a lot in ZBrush. So don't be afraid to do that. Yes, Ian.
So when would you use perspective? When would you use orthographic?
Okay, I'll show you that in a second. Actually, let's go back to that question. And if I don't hit it, then ask me again. Okay, I'm going to change my brush to I'm going to just change to my standard brush. So that's usually up here on top because that's the first thing that's usually selected. And now I'm just going to hold Alt and sculpt around this a little bit, maybe smooth it a little bit by holding Shift. And let's just get this eyebrow protruding like so. And let's see here. And maybe go back to that move tool. Pull that out a little bit. So I want a nice round shape, you know. So think about this. You can do this right here. You want to be able to do stuff like this with the eyebrows. Okay? So when you get to the point where you're animating, you have to think about like, okay, if he doesn't have some kind of eyebrow, or then you're going to lose some personality. That's why most models have pretty pronounced eyebrows, because then there's a whole level of animating the personality in. I'm going to go to my dam standard, DS. So, and my dam standard, remember the dam standard is like this little pinchy brush. So if I want to really define in there. Now here is where I'm getting to the point where I'm like, hey, this resolution may not be high enough. So actually I'm going to delete my higher resolution right there, and I'm just going to divide it again. And you can see what just happened there. Now it looks a little bit smoother. Okay, ZBrush does not have a smoothing algorithm in it. It's always faceted. The way you actually smooth it is you divide up. Now it's starting to look really nice and smooth. Okay, that's basically how you smooth. But remember my rule: don't go up until where you're at is in the right spot. Oops, let's see. Did I just do the wrong thing? Yeah, I did the wrong thing. Hold on. I'm undoing it. Okay, so now we just have 2 subdivisions. That's what I want. Anyway, all right, so now you can see that I is, I'm going to go ahead, I'm not going to like completely finish it. I'm just going to go ahead and divide one more time. So let's say I want to actually put the little crease in the eye. Still have the damn standard brush. And I can do something like that. Now I did up-res it because now I have enough polygons to put in a little crease like that. So if that's the shape you're looking for. Alright, watch this. I'm going to use the pinch brush. P, just hit P, use the pinch brush. What does the pinch brush do? Anybody? Anybody? It pinches things. Yes, look at this. Actually, the damn standard has a pinch function in it. And you can actually set these brushes, like custom set these up. So you can actually set a brush that has pinch in it yourself if you want to get into doing stuff like that. And there are a lot of people that make up their own brushes and stuff. Like they're doing specific things and they want their brush to do something specific. Okay? So maybe I just smooth it a little bit and, redo it if it wasn't perfect, I just hit BDS, which actually allows me to switch to my damn standard again. Now, if I feel like I'm not getting a smooth enough stroke, okay, this is where you would use your lazy mouse. My lazy mouse is on already. I typically do my early sculpting without the lazy mouse, but you can turn a lazy radius up, and you can turn lazy smooth up, and this will smooth out your stroke. Watch this. So you can see that I have, when I'm pulling now, there's like this little drag behind. See that little thing that drags behind? And so when I'm stroking in here, I can go, and it's really nice and smooth. It's basically interpolating your stroke. It's making it just a little bit smoother. So look at this. So now if I want to get it a little bit nicer, like so. There we go. So maybe that's what I want. And then maybe the pinch again to pinch the corners. Because the corners look a little bit, kind of too rounded. Alright, so maybe that's right. Maybe I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. Alright, I want to talk about masking really quick, because I haven't really gone over masking that much. I sort of mentioned it. And this is going to go right into, like, making clothing parts. Okay, so I'm going to actually put it to my lowest thing, delete all the higher stuff. So I just lost all the work I did. No big deal. I'm just having fun here. Alright, so masking is, if I go ahead and whatever my brush size is, I hold Control, you can see that it has a plus mask, and I can paint on here. And then, of course, if I'm sculpting, let's get my standard brush. Wherever it's masked, it will not sculpt that area. Okay? Now, you can have different levels you can have your mask not at 100%. So right now, my mask is at 100%. It goes by the RGB value. Okay? So my RGB is at 100%. To get rid of your mask, by the way, you just Control swipe outside of the mesh. Okay, but if I want to just have a 50% mask or something, I can hold Control. Now that's actually at 50%. So now when I sculpt here, well, it really isn't doing much. It should be at 50%. Huh. Well, all right. Let me show you where the masking, the actual buttons are. It's in there. It says masking. Okay. I can say blur mask. And now when you sculpt over it, you can get a little bit more leeway there. Okay, so masking is really important. Okay, without messing with the tools, you get this brush, and then you get a marquee that you can drag and mask. Let me show this from further back. I'm gonna turn off perspective. This is what, Ian, your question about where do you turn off perspective? When I'm masking, that's usually a time where I turn off perspective, especially when I'm masking like this. Like if I want to do like a straight marquee or something. Oh, actually my mask is not masking at 100%. Okay, let's clear that. That's a 100% mask. Okay, so I do that because if I have the perspective on, then it won't mask straight through. What'll happen is it'll actually mask like on an angle. So if I turn this, you can see right here I get the stair stepping. That's because of the perspective. Or it's because of the polygonal flow. It could be either one, but turning that off, it helps eliminate. All right, this is what's really important about masking, because there's going to be times that you need to just work on one area, Or let's say you want to break pants off. Okay, let me break the pants off. So if you hold Control, you can see that your like the masking tools that you have right now are they come up. So if I click on here and I go to my mask lasso, this is one I use a lot. So I'm going to click on mask lasso. So now when I hold Control, I get this lasso out. Okay, so if you want to do something like, oh, I want to give them armbands or something like that. Okay, or let's do a shirt instead of pants. Okay, so let's go like that, and then let me mask this, like so. Make sure I get those little areas there. Oops, right there. Okay, so I'm going to make them a shirt, right? Now I don't want the tail involved there, so let's get rid of that. Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you how. So you hold Control to mask, you hold Control and Alt together to unmask. So I can see how the color changed for the mask. So I can actually unmask by holding Control and Alt. Like so. Okay, so there, I just undid the tail. Alright, now I want to extract this piece off. Alright, but I still want to keep Duncan intact. I don't want him to go away. So what I'm going to do is, there's a couple ways you can do this. One, I could just duplicate Duncan and then extract the piece and then like delete another piece. But I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to go to split here, and right down here it says split mask points. Okay? I'm going to hit split mask points. And what you're going to see though is that now Duncan's missing something, right? Well, that's okay because in my history within this subtool, I can just back this off a couple. So we'll go here, and then you can see the shirt is still there. So let me hide Duncan and go down to the shirt. See, the shirt's still there. I don't know. Oh, I must have got some of his ears. Okay, but that's how you can break something off. Now you could also do this in Maya. Obviously, it may be easier to do it in Maya, to just take a section off. But if you wanted to sculpt this, and let's say I wanted to put wrinkles in and stuff like that, here's what the next steps would be. First of all, let me, let's do this. I'm going to delete this and delete this one. Okay, let's go back to the Duncan and select him. See, my mask is still there. Let me unmask these errors. Oops, that's the wrong tool. Unmask the errors. Darn it. Why is it doing that? Huh. That's really weird. I think that's a bug. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I have the X symmetry on, so it already unmasked the mirrors. Or the ears. Okay, so this should be fine. So now I just do the same thing. Split mask points. Okay, so now I've got just the shirt. But we don't want these jaggedy lines, right? So we want to fix that. Let me go back up to Duncan. We still have him up. I'm going to undo. So now I have that again. I'm going to go to the shirt. Let's hide Duncan. Let me show you how you fix this. You go down to Defamation, and you can say polish by groups. Okay? And see what just happened? It basically just polished out. Now the topology is still not perfect for this. So if you look at it, it's got some weird topology. But if need be, you can just go and do a Z remesh on this, and it's really fast. Geometry, Z remesh. Let's put it at like 5,000. Just hit Z remesh. It'll go really fast. And there you go. And that's actually symmetried, and it looks like it's got pretty good edge flow as well. Okay, so now I have a shirt for him, and if I wanted to sculpt something, sculpt wrinkles in or whatever, I can do that on this shirt. Obviously, I'd probably want to bring him out. And then if I want to take the shirt and make it a little bit bigger so I can start sculpting on it, I mean, you could just start sculpting like this, like so. Now I'm sculpting on it. Okay, and now smooth it a little bit. Or you can go to your deformation, do the whole thing, and just do an inflate. See that? And now he's got the shirts outside of the body. Okay, so we're almost done here. So I wanted to show you those couple things. Now, to get this back into Maya, so this is the last step. To get this back into Maya, you can just, whatever subtool you have selected, it will export that individually. So you just say export. and then save it out. Shirt. Back into Maya. Import. Oh, for crying out loud. There we go. Let's use my mouse. There we go. There's the shirt. Select it. Sometimes you might get, when for some reason certain models that come out from Zbrush will be like in chunks. If that happens to you, grab all the chunks at once. Not obviously not this stuff, but all the Zbrush chunks. Do a combine, and then grab all the verts and do a merge verts at like a really low threshold. Okay, like 0.001. All right, that I've had that happen so many times that I can't even tell you. So I know it's probably going to happen to you guys if you're exporting from Zbrush, and it just happened recently. Any questions? All right, I will change the assignment thing so that you guys can. But I still want it to be done by Monday. So that means that everybody, you're getting basically the extra weekend to work on your project, getting the sculpt part done. Okay, and I will put this video up ASAP.